Well, since the title is Romeo is Bleeding, I figured I'd wear red.
I tried to wear black and white because I thought it was kind of noirish.
Little.
But then I forgot the red in there too.
Pull it out there, this is a very obscure movie from the 90s. It was panned by critics when it came out, and actually got a little bit of cult following later on. I've always been a fan of this movie, and I figured it was a chance to check it out. And not a lot of people critique this movie, and I think it's an opportunity for both Kyle and I to give it a little shout out and see what's all the fuss about. From a little cult movie from the early 90s, when, not really early 90s, more like mid 90s, when everybody loved these very flashy, I would say sleek suit noirs. That's kind of my
noir
thing.
was kind of in like a changing landscape at that point.
Yes.
I mean, it kind of has to in order to survive, And so for me, I'd heard of the title, maybe from the Tom Waits song that the title comes from.
Yeah.
I didn't really remember anything about the film. I don't really think I even knew about the film's existence except for the title. So when you brought this up as a pick for this week, I was really excited because, again, it's a brand new experience for me.
Yeah.
I love brand new experiences. I'm the guy who goes to every restaurant for the first time. So I was really excited to see the film and see a take from Gary Oldman. So I'm excited to talk about it with you today. This is Nick Palodichuk, and I'm Kyle Goethe, and this is Kyle and Nick on Film. We're talking Romeo is Bleeding. All right, folks, welcome back to Kyle and Nick on Film. Again, today we're talking Romeo is Bleeding. Nick, why don't you run us down with like the general plot here? You've watched it more often.
So the general plot of this movie, Romeo is Bleeding, is Gary Oldman kind of doing what he does best as a troubled person, but he's a cop, but he's a bad cop. And you're trying to root for a bad guy. He's all for about the money.
Mm-hmm.
And so
about the women.
All about the women. There's 3 important women in his life, and we'll get into that a little bit. But predominantly, this is a Gary Oldman film, and it's one of the things that I actually appreciate about it. There's a great supporting cast as well. We talk about Ron Perlman actually makes an appearance of this. But you have Annabella Sciorra as his wife. You have Lena Olin as a bad guy. You have the very accomplished Roy Schneider making a bad guy. So
yeah, he was quite interesting to see. But I didn't know he was in the movie, so I was like, whoa, okay, where's the shark?
So why do I like this movie that got harshly criticized? Well, I think it's a very footnote of noirs in the 90s, very over-the-top, exaggerated, and everybody wearing fancy suits. You see that in movies like Things to Do in Denver When You're Dead. You see that in Reservoir Dogs. You'll see that all through, even like Hard Boiled that came out in Korea.
Yeah.
Chow Yun-fat. So these, but I would say these sleek suits, over-the-top, exaggerated noirs. The other thing about noirs, it's a style. It's not a genre, so you can play with it and do anything you want. But this was the time of the era. One thing I'd like to point out is it's very gaudy.
Oh, yeah.
I forgot how I would watch it again. It's very gaudy.
Yeah, that was one of the first takeaways I had from the film. So I knew director Peter Medak from The Changeling, and I was kind of a big Species fan growing up, and he did the second Species film, which I commonly said is the best one.
The second one is the best one.
So I think I was kind of looking at this film like from a coming off of horror aspect, because that's where all of my Peter Medak knowledge came from. It is done in a very bloody, very visceral kind of a way.
Yeah.
I think, like you pointed out, this is Gary Oldman's film. Like, everything in the film relies on Gary Oldman. I think that's the part that works the best for me, is that this is one of those top tier level performances from Gary Oldman, which I think is great. The man is known now for being able to disappear into like Winston Churchill in Darkest Hour, or even be like in those popular films like the Harry Potter films, the Dark Knight films. What we forget is his ability to disappear without makeup, like become a completely different character who looks like all the other characters he played. It's a really great performance. I just don't think the movie is as good as the performance.
Yeah.
It's one of those things where like the individual elements, again, seem like they could work together really well. And I don't think it just connects the right way.
Right. There's pieces of this film that are fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
It's almost like a missing jig, but they don't really connect very well. In fact, the story is a mess. If you try to think out the story, it's a complete mess.
I did pause about halfway through, and I was like, I need another cup of coffee because I think I'm missing it. D.P. Dariusz Wolski, who did The Martian and Prometheus, for whatever problems you may have with those films, they're shot gorgeously. And I think there is some really gorgeous cinematography in the movie. There's one scene in particular, or a shot in particular, that really got me, and that's just after a particular car crash sequence. Lena Olin's character is
Comes
like
out,
she's I think tied up, her hands are tied behind her back, and she gets out of this car in this really gorgeous tracking shot around the vehicle as like Gary Oldman's kind of recovering.
And it's really her. It's not a stunt.
It was incredible to watch. It was like a shot where just like if I had fallen asleep at that point, that shot would have woken me back up.
Yeah.
Like it was a really powerful sequence. There's some really great lighting sequences, particularly near the end of the film with some like mistaken identity situation that kind of takes place. I think the score, Mark Isham's score, is amazing.
So this is what I think really dominates it and really helps the movie, even though it's a bad script, but the sound effects and sound editing and sound placement, as well as the musical score, emphasize it and makes it much better. There's a time where she's seducing Lena Olin's character, Gary Oldman, and there's a certain charm of bells that rings that's almost like warning him this is a danger.
Is that when he first comes across her?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
And also there's a second time where he confronts her, but there's sound effects of police and like sirens and everything like warning him. So I think the sound department actually did a much better job emphasizing what needed to be placed in. Yeah.
It's a mixture of truly great elements with truly not great elements.
Yes.
Like we were pointing out, like the editing is all over the place, and it's from editor Walter Murch, who's done a lot of great editing work in the past. I maybe just don't think he had like either the right film to work with or just not the right pieces to place where he wanted to. I have a theory about the film. I think that the screenplay, which was written by Hilary Hankin, I think it was planned to be almost kind of a mock-up of film noir.
Yes, yeah.
And I think it was filmed as a straightforward film noir.
Yeah, so I think the sales pitch, and Hillary is a woman. A woman wrote the screenplay for this.
Mm-hmm. And you can see there's a feminist kind of take to like how he treats people and how it comes back to get him.
So I think there was a little bit of sample that this was not intended to be a serious. This is overly exaggeration. These are people who love noirs that are having fun. There's a little bit of Lena Olin having a week at the camera as she's doing this outrageous character.
Yeah.
I think she's having the most fun doing this movie.
I did not have a lot of fun watching her though. I did not. I think Hankin wrote a bit more of a send up, not a straight parody, maybe more of a satirical,
right?
Kind of let's take our classic film noir and add a little '90s ecstasy to it.
Yes, yes,
and it kind of comes off to me like as though like director Medak was like making this as a straightforward film. Murch was editing it as a straightforward noir, but there's elements of it that are kind of sending up noir. Yeah. I speak about this from Hankin's point of view, again, because she wrote one of my all-time favorite guilty pleasures, which is Roadhouse. So she's got experience with that, but she's also an Oscar-nominated screenwriter for Wag the Dog. So she's got a wide berth, even from the few credits she has. And I think Romeo's Bleeding, I feel like she was intending for it to be more satirical, and it was shot more straightforward, and that's what gives it that messy feeling to it.
That's what I love about it. It's a complete hot mess of a movie. Mm-hmm. It's bookended by a cafe in the desert that doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah. Well, and that's my big thing too, is that some things about it feel like they're straight film noir, and some things feel kind of betraying the format. Yes. Maybe in an attempt to grow. It's kind of what I always said about Rian Johnson when he directed Star Wars. He said if Star Wars is going to survive, it has to grow and evolve. I think that was maybe the intention of part of the screenplay was if film noir is going to survive, it has to evolve and grow. Yeah. I don't think that message is all the way through. I think the ending betrays a lot of our classic film noir, dirty cop stories with how it plays out. I found the ending to be kind of yucky. I didn't really enjoy it. He's a bad guy, and I want to see kind of like the real suffering that comes with it. Right.
And that's a hard sell when this person is a completely bad guy. He made this bed. He
spends half the film being a bad guy.
Yeah. He has a mistress, for God's sakes, and then you're supposed to feel sorry for him at the end for like all the stuff that he caused.
Yeah, and they're hinting even at his mistress being under 20, at least in the teenage years, which is very murky waters. Less so in the 90s, I guess, than today, but I mean, it's still very murky stuff going on. Let's talk about our three ladies, because they're each a very different viewpoint into Jack Grimaldi, Gary Oldman's world. There's Lena Olin as Mona Demarkov.
This Russian assassin that's way over the top.
And I think she's in the wrong movie. I'm going to say it right now. I think she's in the wrong movie. Maybe her shtick would have worked for me better in a different film. Yeah. But it's over the top, but she kind of breaks that envelope. There's like a ceiling of over the topness that the movie gets to, and I feel like she's the only part that's like going out of that. Yeah. And it really lost me, especially like later on.
Because it gets tiresome.
Yeah, and again, like that particular thing can work in certain films. I kind of compared. There's a moment where she's trying to strangle someone with her legs. That works really well in Goldeneye, which came out within.
I think that is pretty. Yeah.
It didn't work in this movie because it's just not the right movie for it.
Yeah.
You know, like these kind of elements can work really well in other films. But I just completely lost it with her character about halfway through the movie. I was like, I'm done. I don't care about her.
And then the mistress played by from
Juliette Lewis plays Sherry, who's the underage potentially mistress, the girlfriend that he's not told his wife about. We of course talked about Juliette Lewis in our Christmas Vacation episode. Yeah. She's also very well known for Natural Born Killers, August, Osage County. A very accomplished actress.
So this is in between Christmas Vacation and Natural Born Killers.
Yep.
This was an interjection. This triptych of three women in Gary Oldman's life, these characters all represent kind of a different, like the danger, home, and seduction. Mm-hmm. But it doesn't play out the way you think it should because the mistress is kind of awkward, childlike, and it gets annoying. The home aspect, Annabelle actually threatens him with a gun, and she gives him a wink, which is supposed to carry over to the other character, Leon, and gives him a wink as a gun. So it's kind of a mess of what you're trying to do as a triptych that doesn't write very well.
Yeah, I think it seems like a breakdown in communication. Annabelle Cior, I thought she was great. I loved the wife character. Natalie
scene,
has a great sequence. Yeah, that scene that she gets to share about halfway through the film where she says, what is it? If I had $1 million, I would buy happiness, which is like, oh, what a heartbreaking line. What a great line.
And he just brushes it off like you're just venting.
Yeah. And then the Olin character, again, is way over the top. Juliette Lewis's character, I feel like they're at a bit of a loss with what to do with it. I think her performance was fine, but I just didn't think there was enough to do with the character that gave her arc, especially with where it leads, a lot of closure and a lot of real emotional weight. Yeah. It's kind of missing that for me. But I really did like Annabelle Cior's Natalie. I thought she was a great solid character in that. I wish we'd gotten to see more with her. There's a lot of bloat with a lot of characters, and I kind of found my favorite ones being ones we didn't get to spend time with.
That's the other thing about that's a minus for it is because the things that you want to see more of get played out front. The scenes that you haven't too much of get way out in front.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Let's see here. So we talked about score. We talked about DP. Yeah. Editing wise, the great Walter Murch.
It saves it. Yeah.
The editing is, I think it's again putting together a puzzle that pieces aren't always fitting correctly. Yeah. And I think the freneticness to it, and especially the way that they use Oldman's narration. Yeah. I particularly like when he's talking and he jumps into this scene with the legs around his head and there's blood everywhere and he's holding and he's like, wait, I've gone too far, I need to back up. Yeah. That's an element that's used more today. In fact, we just saw elements of it in Birds of Prey.
That definitely was in Birds of Prey.
No, but like it was done like in a very simplistic way, and you can see kind of like the guiding of where future film noir can even go. There's references to that kind of even in like Sin City and like modern comic books turned films for that as well. It's
a trope that you've probably never seen before until probably used it. I think some other movies used it before, but yes, there's a staple in Romeo's Bleeding that the narrator goes too far ahead and backtracks.
Yep. And there's that losslessness too, where the narrator, the way Oldman is narrating it is as if he's playing another character, which really bleeds into his character arc in a really kind of interesting way as the film goes on. I thought the narration, I wasn't even sure that it was him. Like, as there were parts of the film where like I hear it, but it could just be me hearing it, and I was kind of waiting. Are we going to find out it's like a twin brother? Like I didn't know like what we were going to discover with it, but I do think like the editing puts together a cake that wasn't fully baked and finds a way to make it still somewhat edible.
I agree.
So Nick, I guess final thoughts after having seen this film, because it still currently holds a 22% on Rotten Tomatoes. Having seen this film, are you part of the 22% that recommends, or are you part of the 78% that doesn't?
It's a bad movie. It really is a bad movie. It's a hot mess. But there's some things about it that, and if you really are a Gary Oldman fan, I think you'll carry over to enjoy it. But I like the movie, and I understand it's a bad movie. But there's some things that can go pieces of it that work. Just like Birds of Prey, there's some pieces of it that work. But overall, there needs to be some. I think if somebody had a right script and everything, it would work well. But there's just too much jaggedness and too much.
There's a lot of fluffiness and a lot of wacko moments, but then there's some realistic stuff, and it just kind of gets lost a bit. Yeah. For me, it's a bad movie. It's not recommended by me. unless you are a Gary Oldman fan, or I would say a Roy Scheider fan, because we didn't get much time to talk about him this episode, but I got to just give him real quick love. He plays a great villain. He does. We always know him as these kind of morally,
right.
He's the upstanding citizen. He's the Jaws guy. He's the French Connection guy. But we don't get to see him too often in villainous roles, and I think he does a really great job of doing villainy, except where there's that weird scene at a funeral where he like something that shouldn't happen in public takes place in complete
surrounded by cops.
And I was like, what are we doing? What is this? But anyway, it's a strength of Oldman.
But it does make you laugh when it's like, what, we're going to go gaudy right in front of everybody here? Okay.
People are still walking away from this funeral and stuff is going down right there and no one cares. Anyway, not recommended by me, but I will say if you are an Oldman fan or if you're a Roy Scheider fan, those are two solid performances in the film. I like Annabelle Sciorra too, but she doesn't really get enough time. Like if you're a fan of hers, this film still probably won't get you. 5 scenes. Yeah, and her scenes are powerful, but they're at the beginning of the film even too. So once it kind of goes on, you lose her a lot, and she doesn't really get to do much. Yeah. So 2 great performances. 3 really solid ones overall in a film that kind of loses itself. Yeah. An interesting experiment that shepherds in what's to come with better film noir down the road. Right.
I think that it's a bad film, but it's also a stepping stone for what's to come in the 95s and 98s of The Usual Suspects,
I would say True Romance. True Romance is a very simple, elegant.
It's very much of the same branch.
It's in noirishness. Yeah. But then there's also a fun fact: the day after shooting the last shot of the film, Oldman went over to True Romance. And that's why his actual movement in that last scene seems a little different. He's actually kind of getting into his other character and had to go back and reshoot this last moment. Okay. Doing True Romance, which I think is kind of a funny way to kind of see his character move on to that. There you have it, guys. We dug out Romeo is bleeding. We checked to see if it was still breathing, and we're here to tell you it's a big mess of a film, but you might enjoy it if you're an Oldman fan. That's about it for us, guys. I'm Kyle Goethe. You can find all my film reviews at goatfilmreviews.com. You can follow me online at Almighty Goatman, and you can find me occasionally on Nick's podcast. Nick, what's your podcast called?
I'm host of the St. Paul Filmcast, where we interview local filmmakers from the St. Paul, Twin Cities, and Minneapolis area. All right.
Thank you guys for joining us. Let us know your thoughts on the film if you happen to see Romeo's Bleeding. Right now, it's currently on Amazon Prime, so free. Some of you may not even have to pay for it. Yeah. Check it out. Comment below. Like this video if you enjoyed it. Share it if you like. Also, check out our Patreon. We got the link below the video right here as well. You can see some interesting Patreon posts on there as well. And if you can't afford the Patreon, just share the video. That always helps too. But if you can, we'd love to help. So thanks, guys, for joining us. Until next time, we'll see you later.
Thank you.